SummerSlam 2010 ended with a shocking return, and that of course was Daniel Bryan, who made his way back to the WWE, and an incredible moment it was to see him come out as a member of Team WWE. Now, a lot of people knew that Daniel Bryan was almost certain to be back to the company at some point. Speculation was rife that indeed it was just a 90-day no-compete clause and not so much a full release. I don't think either of us were too surprised that he's back.
Yeah, it was not a real shocker, but it was probably on the end of the list of things I was waiting to see between Taker and possibly Trips coming back and some other goings on and whatnot. But it just goes to show how good this guy is, really, when you see him just take out people so quick of the rest of Nexus, and what a great wrestler he is. He's just cool to watch, and it was a wise move for them to bring him back into a main event picture at SummerSlam. That really kind of puts him in place, I suppose, on the roster.
So much shock and awe was taken out of the moment, unfortunately, by very careless WWE.com administrators who just happened to put up the story and the picture of Daniel Bryan, I think supposedly an hour before the event actually occurred. A shocking display of just negligence on their part, and I gotta think that somebody in there is going to get fired for that. And I mean, you know, they worry so much about backstage gossip and stories coming out before they happen. They try so hard to prevent it. How they can't prevent something like this, I just don't know.
Yeah, I know it's not like Vince to mess up on that side of things. Apparently they kept Daniel Bryan really quiet throughout the backstage in the arena, and even most of the roster didn't know that he was there. I think a couple of heads were on it from what we hear, but somebody definitely on the website of things making a serious fuck up.
Indeed, Daniel Bryan is a guy who can dazzle in the ring. We know how good a worker he is, and I think everybody can respect the ring style, whether or not you think he has come from minor leagues, or if you think where he's been has been an excellent training ground. Personally, I think both of us Ring of Honor fans, and I have to say that Ring of Honor now, almost like an honorary developmental territory. They're going to have to start, you know, making this official soon. You've got people in there now who've been stalwarts in Ring of Honor, and I think now you have to start putting it over a bit, and maybe it's time for another invasion angle, maybe next year, Ring of Honor, WWE.
That's very possible if it doesn't crumble, and if it does, no doubt Dixie and Bischoff will probably jump on it and do a Ring of Honor pay-per-view and maybe leave the rest of the TNA roster off it. But yeah, definitely another developmental territory, as you said, and people getting bought out like the old school days. And Tyler Black, the latest victim of WWE, well, I won't say victim, but assigned to FCW. So that's probably a good thing for a lot of those guys if it's their dream to get there. I'm sure eventually we might see Austin Aries and whatnot. There's a lot of good talent in Ring of Honor, but then at the same time it's kind of a circle of death with guys like Shelton Benjamin and Charlie Haas making a return there. But if, you know, that's what you need to do, that's what you need to do.
Daniel Bryan in the ring with Michael Tarver. I have said Tarver works well, but Daniel Bryan works better, and he made him look really good. I think he's one of those guys you can throw in with anyone, and he'll probably make them look okay. I have to think that at some point you're going to see Daniel Bryan versus Triple H, maybe a main event. Maybe Triple H as heel, Daniel Bryan as a strong face, perhaps a year down the road. There are just so many possibilities for a Daniel Bryan, and I think now as well the crowd have had an appetite for him, seeing as he's been taken off TV and taken out of Nexus so early. I thought it was interesting how they explained that basically the reason was that Wade Barrett kicked him out of Nexus, and Cena said this week, well, are you regretting that one?
Oh, I must have missed that one. I didn't get the full explanation, but yeah, Daniel Bryan taking the Miz's place on Team WWE and definitely delivering the goods. Unfortunately to be knocked out just before the end, but again, the best place for him to come back, and he's solid, and you know, it's going to be a good future, I think, for Daniel Bryan.
The other big story revolving around Daniel Bryan is that of this new feud. Now, The Miz looks to be getting in some sort of program with Daniel Bryan. The history is there, of course. The Miz pro to Bryan's rookie in NXT Season 1. And that's the history that's built this one. Now we've got Alex Riley, who's on NXT Season 2. He's, to be honest with you, on par with The Miz in some ways. It's been amazing how quickly that guy has taken to the audience and to the camera. I have to think that The Miz is maybe a little bit worried about how that guy, side by side with just a few weeks TV behind him, is shining somewhat brightly.
Yeah, definitely. The varsity villain is taking his chance. He's jumping right in there, and he's making sure that he's getting through to people, and that he's really delivering on the heel side of things. And those NXT promos of the last couple of weeks, he's just been great and stepping it up week by week, and really making himself solid. And being paired with The Miz, I don't think there's any better guy to establish someone as a proper heel. Him and Jericho, I think anybody with those two guys, you're safe. We've seen the results with Barrett, and now I'm sure we'll see him with Alex Riley too.
Of course, it was interesting how Bryan sort of kept so quiet, wasn't it? He had supposedly been taken out in terms of TV, and they didn't really refer to him that much, did they? They just sort of swept it under the carpet. And I just remember so much speculation at the time that this just was a work, and people didn't believe that a guy could get fired for supposedly choking out a guy with a tie. And I think this was something that people just didn't believe. But there again, they managed to swerve us here. I know that possibility of Daniel Bryan coming out was talked about, but I certainly didn't know it.
Yeah, I think it's probably, I'd say it's 50-50 on the work swerve side of things. They probably had to fire him for the Mattel thing, but once those 90 days were up, I'm sure Mattel wouldn't really have much of a say. And once Vince has done his job and, booted him out, but pull him back in within good reason, and yeah, it's a big slap on the wrist, but he'll come out the better of it. And yeah, I don't think it was full work. I definitely think the firing was legit, but again, it's WWE, so they do it best.
The future of Daniel Bryan, like a lot of these new guys now, looking brighter than ever. And I think a few years ago, when guys would be introduced that were new, it took a long time for them to gain any foothold. It took a lot longer, for me at least, to sort of buy the character, buy the work, and believe it, and sort of want to see this guy. And I think a lot of these guys are doing that very quickly. Maybe it's just they've stepped into gear and they know that they have to create a whole new decade worth of TV, and a lot of their guys are being left behind. So I wonder now, is this the best time for Ring of Honor guys to start making it up there? Of course, Tyler Black, Ring of Honor champion, he is now also signed to developmental. This is what we hear.
Yeah, I just think long term, when we speak about it, we need to bring back some of the big gimmicks, and we'll definitely talk a bit more about stuff like that later on in the show. But yeah, they can't just keep delivering the guys in trunks. I mean, we've got so many at this stage, it's beyond a joke. I think we need even if it's a minority percentage, 10%, 20% of the over-the-top gimmicks, we need them. And otherwise it's just going to get as stale can be once those big characters like Taker and that are out of the picture.